It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. We're here with Season 7. So glad you're joining us. I'm your host, Cecilia Supp, CAEACNP, and I'm so glad you're here for this exciting year of so many great topics, so don't forget to subscribe. We're rounding out our celebration of AANHPI Month with our third episode featuring another first-time guest, Edessa Polzin. She's here to talk to us about the other side of creating great partnerships. Association partnerships fuel growth. It's Monday, May 12th, 2025. Welcome to episode 285. Hey everybody, it's Monday, May 12th, and that means it's time for another episode of Radio Free 501c, brought to you by Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm your host, Cecilia Supp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips, and I'm really glad you're here with us this week. It's our third episode in our 3-episode series celebrating AANHPI Month. And we have yet another wonderful first-time guest. You're going to love everything that she has to share about our topic this week. But before we dive into that, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. Quick reminder, if you haven't followed us yet or subscribed, please do, because we're having so many great conversations. You don't want to miss any of these. So this week, we are talking about how association partnerships fuel growth with our guest, Edessa Polzin. And before we start the conversation, Edessa, welcome to the show. Would you like to say hello to the audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia. Hi, everybody. I'm Edessa. I'm from the American Marketing Association. I am the Director of Partnerships at the AMA. And I'm excited to be here. And yeah, let's talk partnerships for associations.
Oh, this is great. So I love this topic of fueling growth. So what are some of the things that you see happen when you have vibrant partnerships outside the association?
Yeah, so initially, my first thought about partnerships was, oh, it's sponsors, right? It's a transaction where, hey, we'll put your logo in one of our things and you give us, money and then that's it. But I think these last few years, especially with COVID and especially, with how competitive the market has been, I think there is an opportunity for associations to rethink how we approach partnerships and move beyond the transactional and look at it from a strategic standpoint and see, okay, what else can we do together beyond revenue? Beyond, because obviously, right, nonprofits, we all love the revenue piece, but there is more to that, and partnerships can be a revenue driver and a growth driver for your mission, for your impact, for your members. So yeah, I think we have an opportunity here to kind of like rethink how we see partnerships.
I'm glad you said that, because that's been the trend the last 5 years, at least, maybe even a little bit longer. But people have really been talking about it a lot the last 5 years. How can we create a partnership with sponsors as opposed to just give us money and we'll put your logo up on a sign? So what are some of the things you like to talk to partners about outside of, oh, we'll just stick your logo on the podium during a presentation?
Right. No. So the good thing about my role specifically at the AMA is I have that room to kind of move around the organization. So my role, when you look at our org chart, sits at the professional development department. So at the core is really mission driven, where the AMA is here to advance the marketing practice and to help marketing practitioners. And so because my role in partnerships sits at that training side, that's the priority number one. And so when I approach partners or when partners approach us, I always think about three things, right? Can this partner make something what we do bigger? Can they make what we do better, or can they help us make do what we do faster, right? So it's bigger, better, faster. And that's how I approach our partnerships at the AMA from the strategic partnership side. So as you can see, it's not necessarily how much dollars or all the other metrics that we use, but it's the bigger, better, faster. So we partner with other groups, whether they're corporate vendors or they're other associations, to make our mission bigger. Can they make it better, and can we do what we do faster with them? Those are the three initial kind of like gut checks that I have.
Bigger, better, faster. I love that. So what sort of options do partners have to work with you to make AMA bigger, better, faster? And what I mean about that is what some of the changing view of this is not just, well, here's like gold, silver, bronze, and you can pick a
Right.
package, but talking with the sponsors about, well, what audience do you want to reach? Do you want to present a
Mhm.
session? Do you want to support a session? What are some of the options that maybe you offer at AMA?
Yeah. So one great example that we have, a story that I always tell is so we have this partner called Stu Kent. So initially, they are a very good partner with us in our events, like they sponsor our conferences, but they also play in the higher ed and in the high school, area, like because they are the tech vendor, right? And so they had an idea like, hey, we already play in higher ed, which is our common kind of like audience together. And, they love us. We have an existing relationship with them. But they wanted to, create a certification or like a certificate for high school students. And for the AMA, that's not necessarily our audience. So our communities are collegiate. So we have college students, we have academics, and we have professionals. So we don't really have a high school audience. We don't really play in that area. And then here comes a partner who's like, hey, we know this audience. We really want, your brand and your credibility to get behind this piece of certificate that we're building. And, is that something you're interested in? And then again, going back to the bigger, better, faster, right? The AMA audience now, if we partner with Student, gets bigger because we go beyond our traditional communities. Um, it makes it better because Student is a tech, they have the tech to support their content. And as a nonprofit, as tech is one of those things where like we don't really have the best tech or the most advanced. And so but partnering with them, we don't have to worry about that because they can make it better and faster because they already have this whole engine already ready for that market. They have a sales team, they have a content team, and so we can go to market faster if we partner with them. So initially they check all the boxes, and then they also, as a long-standing partner of the AMA, and they understand our mission. We know what their goals are as an organization because they are, there are sponsors for the AMA. So there's like an organic kind of fit there, and so that's one of the options, or one example that how the AMA partners with these initially vendors, initially sponsors, and how we make them as strategic partners.
That's a wonderful example because they brought you a new market segment that you had
Yeah,
not really focused on before. So I think
right.
that, opening that avenue is
Mm-hmm.
something I think a lot of associations don't consider. And I think,
Right.
you were telling me about your journey to how you became part of the American Marketing Association, having started out as a member. So, associations can do a lot to help people, but
Yeah.
yet we kind of hold ourselves back, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's actually kind of like an inside joke at the AMA. Like we are the blockers of our own projects. We are the problem, right? We kind of like just doubt ourselves, like, how can we do this? Is it, are we scared? And I think that's, something that because I came from, the tech world before I joined the AMA, I have this like, why not? Let's try it. If we fail, we fail it. That's okay. Like we're not doing, open heart surgery. Like there's room for error and that's okay. But I think a lot of legacy or traditional association nonprofit professionals are like, yeah, but we've always done it this way. We only have three communities. Like it's so we don't know out there, but like yeah, we don't know what we don't know. So let's just try it.
Yeah. Well, and I am so glad that you bring that perspective to the AMA because that is really what we need if we want to jumpstart
Mm-hmm.
associations. And that's a big important part of the nonprofit community. But I think 501(c)(3)s could use a little bit of that too. That
Yeah.
that go fast, break things, fail fast,
Right.
because you don't know if you don't try. And
Right.
we get so stuck in our ways and we get so comfortable and it makes us feel
Mm-hmm.
secure not to change what we're doing. But then there's no risk. And without risk,
Right.
there's no reward.
Right. And if there's no pain, there's no growth, right? And I think a lot again, it's just us internally of like, oh, we're scared to try it because what if it doesn't work? Then if it doesn't work, then we've learned something, right? How do we do it
Yeah.
again or can we do it better? Can we adjust, iterate? And I think that's, that kind of thinking in the association space is crucial, especially these days, with the all the challenges, nationwide, and people don't have money to pay for membership, and so how do
Mhm.
we, bring that value forth, without relying to the dues revenue, right? And so that's where partners come in, and again, building beyond the sponsorship or building beyond the exchange of logos and transactions. And here's a list, and here's the thing, like I think there's more um, creativity that we could do there. And I'm glad that the AMA has given me kind of like agency to try and test things out and see what happens. And so far, so good.
No, that's great. Now, can you share an example of a new thing you've tried at the American Marketing Association?
Yeah, so we are now at a very exciting point at the AMA, because when again, like I came from corporate, so I was just like, yeah, why are we not doing enterprise solutions, right? And so that's the new thing we're trying with the AMA, is approaching, these enterprise clients with a holistic package of like, okay, so let's say, for example, and if they're listening, talk to me, Pepsi, like, like a Pepsi, right? The Pepsis of the world, or the Marriotts, like, hey, we have marketing professionals, but we also want, brand credibility. We can sponsor your events, like so many multiple touch points that they could partner with us just beyond showing up at a booth at our conference. Right.
Mhm.
And that's one thing that we're trying. And, I'm very fortunate that our leadership is like, yeah, what, let's do it. Let's try it, is having that enterprise mindset. And we're looking for this upcoming FY26 to really bolster that enterprise solutions area. Because we've seen now FY25 was our testing fiscal year, and we have a couple of enterprise clients that are so far, happy, and I've seen success, and they love us and we love them. And so I think that's the growth avenue for the AMAs, the enterprise.
Mhm. Well, let's explore that a little bit because I don't know if a lot of us in the association community quite understand what that means. So could you explain a little bit about what that approach is? I mean, we all know about like enterprise solutions, or maybe you want to get an
Right.
enterprise version of your software because it
Right.
provides more support. But how does it translate to what you do?
Yeah, so I'm gonna use an example. One of our partners, McGraw Hill, right? So as you know, we have a academic community, we have collegiate community, and McGraw Hill is a leader in the higher ed space. And so they've always shown up at AMA events as sponsors, as they have a booth, they sponsor, all of these things. But now these, McGraw Hill also has product marketers that could use some training, right? And so we partner with them in events. We partner with them in training. Like I was just there in Austin last week for their marketing team summit, where we provided training to their product marketers. And we also have a few virtual trainings coming up with them. So that's how I define enterprise. It's like, okay, you have this big company that you may have partnered, or we have partnered in one way in the past. What else are out there? What else are they looking to do, and how can we help that, how can we support that, right? So I know that McGraw Hill's primary goals is to professional development, and that's where we come in, because again, my role sits in the training side. So that's a good jump off point for us to like talk more of like, okay, beyond the dollars, beyond the exchange of logos and placements, what are your other goals? Can we help you get there? So yeah.
That's a great example. So, if what kind of advice would you give to another association who maybe wanted to do that? Like, let's say they have a big partner like McGraw Hill, they want to make it more of an enterprise approach to the partnership. So, what's some advice that other people could apply in trying to make their partnerships bigger?
I think getting, being unafraid to ask questions like, okay, McGraw Hill, what are your goals? From yes, everybody wants revenue for sure. That's why we're all here. But, do they want to make sure their team is happy, and they want to make sure that their marketing teams specifically are, equipped with all of the latest stuff. And so that's where we come in, like, oh, we can do training for them. We have an executive marketer summit that's invite only. So I invited their executives to like, hey, do you want to come to our event? It's no, there's no vendors. It's really just, executives, CMOs, VPs in marketing trying to like, peer to peer, like networking and learning from each other and panels and all of these things. So like there's multiple ways you can approach an enterprise partner. But I think the primary barrier is we always think of revenue, which again, I love revenue, right? Like it's great. Like I came from a sales and marketing background, so I'm all about that revenue. But from my perspective, relationship first, right? If they know that you are also committed to them achieving their goals, the money will come later. The money will for sure come. Like revenue will come in some form or other. But having that mutual goal, and you commit to them, like, hey, I want to support you to get your goal. If your goal is to make sure your product marketers have the latest and greatest training, we can come in and help you get there.
Well, no, I love that because it's like, yeah, we all love the revenue, especially if it's
Right.
non-dues revenue, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because the way I look at it is the more non-dues revenue you have, the lower you can keep dues.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
so many associations, I have no idea what the AMA dues are, but I do know like the groups I belong to, they're $300 and up, depending on what
Yeah.
your category is. And, it gets expensive. And it's like, what are you actually getting for that other
Mm-hmm.
than it's your entry fee? So I
Right.
think if we can partner non-dues
Mm-hmm.
revenue with dues revenue and keep the dues
Right.
revenue lower and reduce that
Yep.
barrier to entry, especially if our members need to pay as they go. So like you pay your dues, then you got to pay to go to the conference,
Right.
you got to pay to buy a book, you got to pay to go to the
Mm-hmm.
webinar or whatever else. So
Yeah.
if it's an entry fee to pay, I think that needs to be as low as possible, especially if you have a thriving non-dues revenue program where we can do that. We don't need to do everything on the staff
Right.
side. We can work with people to get
Yep.
the stuff done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that's also, when I talk to partners, is yes, again, like the mutual revenue goals are great. We have all of these targets to hit and budget and all of these things that the board wants us to do, but it's all about, I think, for me, really, my approach is like the mission, right? So when I talk to partners, like, okay, here's the solution that we think would work, and this money would go towards, funding for our first generation scholarships, right? Like at the end of the day, we are mission driven. And it's funny, coming from tech, then working to a nonprofit, and the nonprofit mantra is, if we just break even, we're good. And I was like, break even? Like, what? So like, it's not even like we're not out here making like billions of dollars annually, but if we just keep the lights on, get everybody paid, pay for our foundation, pay for our mission, keep everything running, we're good. Like it's not that, it's not that ambitious, right? In the
Right.
grand scheme of things. And so that's where the partners come in. Like, hey, you, by partnering with us, you're delivering value to the marketing community, and you're helping us, further our mission, which is, at the end of the day, is why we're here, right? It's mission driven. It's a
Right.
nonprofit for a reason.
That's right. We're not about making the money, we're about using the money that we have
Right.
for
Yeah.
that. Now, I love that.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that it's really about relationship building and then maintaining
Yeah.
that relationship along the way with your partners. How do you integrate them into the AMA community?
So I think I am very fortunate to have the 360 view of the AMA, because I was a member, I was a volunteer before I joined the staff, and I came from, corporate, so I had that corporate view as well. And so I know, like, in a company, oh, you have VPs. We have a community for executives. Oh, you have managers. We have a community, or, we have a specific track for emerging marketers that we say, oh, you're trying to focus on, digital marketing. We have a, training for that. We have cohorts for that. We have our different, like, sub communities, or SIGs for those things. So I can kind of like see I had that holistic view of the AMA and what it offers because I was a member, I was a consumer of our training. I was a fan before I was, I'm paid to become a fan. And so I think having that 360 view and where that I think for association professionals is if you have partners, get to know them. Like, what are their goals? What is their organization structure looking like? Who do they report to? Who signs the contracts? And what's their plan for the next fiscal year? Is there some mutual ground that you could cover together? Can they help you get to where you want to go, bigger, better, faster? Right. So there's, I think, having that effort to like get to know them from like a holistic view, then you can step back and like, oh, we have this event, you don't normally go to this event, but I think you would like it because here, right? So the more intel you have about your partner, then the more, the better partner you can be. So
Mhm.
that's my approach.
I love that. And then you include them in things. You don't say,
Yeah.
just give us a check and stay over there.
Right. Or like, hey, here's a booth. It's $20,000, and then we'll give you a list. Like, okay, I can just buy a list somewhere.
I
You know
know.
what I mean? Like, it doesn't. I think that's a thing too. Is like we gotta move from the transactional to like the strategic vision of it. Because again, there's other, especially now with like AI, there's so many things you can do that traditionally, we could tack on some pricing to that, but now it's tough out there.
Yeah. Well, and it is. And it's like, and that's why I think with the advances in technology, not just AI, but, you can walk around with your phone and never use your computer.
Yep.
If you have Wi-Fi and enough apps, you don't even need your computer most of the
Yeah.
time. And we can
Yeah.
dictate things, so we don't even need the
Mm-hmm.
keyboard anymore. So there's a lot of things like that. And I think the problem with that, and I know you're from the tech world, and I love tech because it does make all these things so easy for us.
Right.
And we can do things like you're in Wisconsin, I'm in Maryland, we're having this
Right.
great conversation online. But I think what it does is it tends to isolate us and separate
Mm.
us if we're not careful. And I think, AI, everybody's like, oh, AI, do this with AI. And it's like, but are we really focusing on these things well enough that they're providing some sort of I shouldn't say payback. Payback's the wrong word. Some sort of return on investment for
Right.
the effort and time it takes to learn them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also can get in the way of us building these strong relationships like you've described.
Yeah, no, and I think before or like last year, I didn't travel as much to a lot of our client events. But
Mhm.
then, I realized I was like, well, as much of an introvert as I am, I love staying at home. I Everything I like is in my home, so I don't need to leave the house. I can have groceries delivered. So I'm like, as much as I like to stay home, I wouldn't have that same connection or that same conversation and get to know our partners if I don't go out there and meet them where they are, literally and physically, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. And even, with sure we can meet in Zoom, but having dinner with a partner and having, a couple of drinks with them and the coffee or whatever, then you get to talk about other things that are, more organic. And that gives you then insight of like, oh, okay, you mentioned this, that you wanted to do this for the next fiscal year, like, oh yeah, we are actually doing this too, and how can we partner with that, right? And a lot of the brainstorming and the ideation comes from those organic conversations, which I think is what I love most about what I do.
Well, and then you have a shared experience with
Yes.
someone that you can look
Mm-hmm.
back on and say, oh, remember that time we had the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
coffee and,
Right.
a dog ran in and stole your muffin.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a shared
Yeah.
memory too.
Yeah.
So, but that's really, I just love all your advice. And I don't want to end our episode until I ask you a few things about AANHPI month, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So, what is it now? Are you part of the ASAE advisory group as well?
Not the advisory group, but I am a part of the AANHPI kind of like SIG within the
Mhm.
ASAE world. Sharon actually invited me because I used to work with Sharon. She was on the vendor side, and we were like I was on the other vendor side, and we were doing some like, co-webinars and all of that. And we're, she's Filipina, I'm Filipina, and she's like, hey, you should join this now that you're in the association world. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it. And it's been a great group. I'm still in my, like, again, like I'm an introvert, so I'm like, I don't really like, but next week when we go to MMNC, I'm hoping to see a lot of them in person. And I think we have a dinner scheduled with Joanna, so I'm excited. Yeah.
Great. Well, and what is it that you get out of being part of the AANHPI community at ASAE?
I know it's very cliche, but like just having this, the shared, like you said, experience, right? And so having that community of like, oh yeah, I was also raised this way, like, oh yeah, I grew up this way. We have this internal things that we do, or that are kind of innate within us because of how we're raised, how our culture, and having someone to like talk about that with, like, with especially Sharon, again, because she's Filipina, I'm Filipina. We share the same like food and frustrations with our parents, and all of these complaints, and like, reminiscing, like, oh my God, I wish I was at the beach right now, and all of these things. So like having that, again, community is great, because yeah, I think if you understand each other better, and sometimes you don't even have to say anything, like you just look at each other and you're like, mm-hmm, yep, I know what you're thinking. And that's, I think that's a very human in us, right? To find that connection and just find the people who are in our tribe,
Mm.
so to speak.
Yeah, that well, and that's true because the AANHPI community covers a lot of different kinds of people and communities, and
Yeah.
I think it's important though that everybody know more about
Mm-hmm.
this group of people and how wonderful they are and everything they bring to the world around them. But I have found, and from talking with other people about AANHPI month, other guests, I have heard from many of them that people in this group they tend to be a little more quiet.
Yeah.
They're a little
Yeah.
more reserved,
Yep.
and and we need to understand that so that we can bring out all of these opportunities for this group of people who will not necessarily put themselves forward. So I want everybody to know about that. Let's look around. Everybody's not going to promote themselves. Everybody's not going to
Right.
speak out. Everybody's not going to say, give me that leadership opportunity. So let's make sure we're offering them to a lot of different kinds of people and opening that access for everybody, because it's my opinion from what I've seen. I think a lot of people in the AANHPI community tend to get overlooked simply
Right.
because they're a little more reserved, they're a little more quiet. And so I think that's something we can change, and I would love to keep supporting that and getting more people to know more about this group at ASAE. Now, I understand there's a Collaborate community. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And it's a lot of conversations there. We also have a Slack channel that we can, you can join us and talk to us about, we have updates and like all of these things. And yeah, it's a very, you are correct. Like the this group initially, or like, is more reserved, and we're very like hesitant to like raise our hands, like, hey, I can do that, I'm great, and all of that. And again, that's the cultural thing, right? In us, and the Asians are a little bit more reserved, a little bit more subdued. But having a group like this, and sometimes it's just, knowing that, oh, there's a space for me that I can speak up if I want to, right? Just having that option sometimes is all we need. And that for me, really, that's it. It's like, oh, if I have something to contribute, or if I get asked, it's a safe space for me to say something, and I won't feel like I'm overstepping or stealing someone's thunder or all of that. Just having that space is really valuable, especially these days.
Well, that's a great description of why that group's important and how it helps connect people. And I'm looking forward to some of the other events that may be coming out of that group. I know that there's probably going to be something at the ASA annual meeting in August, or probably be
Mm-hmm.
some sort of a networking event. So
Yeah.
people should watch for that. And those tend to be open to a lot of different people, not just that group at
Yeah.
AANHPI. So
Yeah.
come and find out what's going on with this group, because like a lot of associations, ASA has a lot of sub-communities that are doing a lot of awesome things that you just may not know about.
Right. Yeah. And again, Collaborate is a great spot. And you're right. At annual, there's going to be a meetup, I'm sure. And yeah, the Slack channel is open to everybody. And it's a space for everyone. And it's a space for us folks who are in the AANHPI community. And I kudos to ASAE also for like, hey, this is a good group. Like we should have one of these. And yeah, I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and thanks for sharing that and sharing your perspective on your experience. So, this episode's been a great companion to Sharon Pare from High Road Solutions, who is the Sharon that Edessa mentioned. She was here last week talking about the benefits of partnerships and how to create a great partnership from the vendor side. And now Edessa's talking about it from the association side. So they're both great episodes. So I hope everybody has a chance to listen to both. So, Edessa, as you know, I always like to ask my guests, what's the one thought you'd like the audience to take away today? And then how can they get in touch with you if they'd like to talk with you more?
Yeah, one thought, if there's one takeaway that you could, walk away with from this conversation is like, try new things. It's okay, especially for association professionals. There's so much more, goodness that we could do in the world, and especially with our mission in mind. Don't lose sight of the value that we offer, and yeah, just try new things. It's okay to try new things, and you'll never know. You'll have one of these, aha moments of like, oh yeah, we can do this. Now it becomes a real business unit within the association. So that's the advice. People can reach me at my email, epolzin, so EPOLZIN at ama.org. I'm also on LinkedIn, so find me there. But yeah, happy to continue and talk everything partnerships and associations.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Edessa, and sharing all your great advice and insights on partnerships.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome, but we do have to go rogue for now. But we'll be back next time with another exciting episode. You can find this episode on our website, roguetulips.com, on our podcast page, as well as our other episodes for this month for AANHPI Month. I encourage you to check them all out and learn more about this community within ASAE and actually within our country at large. There's a lot of people from around the world here. So if you'd like to learn how Rogue Tulips Consulting can help your organization bloom outside the box, check out our services page on the website, and then let's have a conversation and see if we can work together. If you'd like to know what the heck is on my mind this week, check out the blog page because you never know what I'm going to write about. If you're looking for education, our fall session will start in September. Watch our education page for updates, but in the meantime, we're continuing to offer our ethics course. So if you are looking for ethics education, check out the education page. That's it for this week. On behalf of Edessa and myself, we'll see you next time. That's it for this week. I hope you really loved this episode as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Learn more about how our experience and knowledge at Rogue Tulips can give your organization the strategic edge to reach its goals. Check out our website at roguetulips.com. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can work together. Thanks.